Okay, so today we're gonna start with example 18, which is this one right here on your note sheet. Okay, you guys were supposed to complete this example in your breakout rooms the other day. So I just want to go over the answers to make sure that everyone was okay on that one. So the first question says, what percent of seniors are white? So these words directly following seniors, that's going to tell you your total that you're working out of. Okay, so that number is going to tell you your denominator, okay? So we're looking at all seniors, right, which is all of these, so that's the 325. So 325 is going to be my denominator, okay? Then what I'm wanting to know is out of those, how many are white? So when I'm looking there, that number looks like my total for seniors that are white are 268. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just divide that onto my calculator. So 268 divided by 325 is going to be 82.46%. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that down. Okay, so that's that first one. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the second one. What percentage of seniors, so again, I'm looking out of seniors, so that's going to be out of 325 total seniors, are planning to attend a 2-year college. So this is going to be my numerator. The kids planning to attend a 2-year, so for total kids planning to attend a 2-year would be 42. Okay, so 42 out of 325 is going to give me 12.92%. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. What percentage of seniors, okay, are white and planning to attend a 2-year college? So again, this is out of seniors. So out of seniors would be out of 325. Okay, white and planning to attend a 2-year. So within this white category, planning to attend a 2-year is going to be 36. Okay, so 36 divided by 325, that's giving me 11 point, it looks like with a rounding, 11.08%. There. Okay, so next one, what percentage of white seniors? So notice they changed it from seniors to white seniors. So my denominator is going to change now. So if I'm just wanting to know out of white seniors is 268. So my denominator has now changed. Okay, and out of those, which ones are planning to attend a 2-year college? So out of those ones, I need to look at out of white seniors, which is out of these ones, which ones in this column are planning on attending a 2-year? Well, it's 36. Okay, so now I have 36 divided by 268. So that's going to be 13.43%. Okay, and then the last one, what percentage of seniors planning to attend a 2-year college? So they've changed the denominator again. Okay, so when I'm looking at seniors planning to attend a 2-year college, so out of seniors that are planning to attend, the denominator would now be 42. Okay, which of those ones are white? So out of these 42, which ones were white? It was 36. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do 36 divided by 42, which is 85.71%. So you have to be careful there with the wording, that you're really looking at it carefully, because at first glance it looks like it's asking the same question repeatedly, and it's not. Okay, so you have to really look carefully at what they're asking for. Okay, let's take a look at number 20. So number 20 says, you have this organization monitoring the future. They asked 8th graders who said they smoked cigarettes what brands they preferred. The table below shows brand preferences for the two regions. So they interviewed students from the South and from the West. Is there an association between brand preference and region? Well, let's take a look. Here I see that these two regions kind of have a very similar brand preference in Marlboro. But when I look at Newport, okay, this is looking significantly different to me. Also Camel, I'm seeing a big difference here. And then this looks pretty similar for other, but then teens that said they had no usual brand, there was a significant difference there, okay? So I'm gonna say for Newport's, we had 22.5% in the South versus 10.1% in the West. Okay, for Camel, we had 3.3% in the South versus 9.5% in the West. And then for no usual brand, we had 6.7% for the South versus, what was it, 12.9% for the West. So it appears there is evidence, right? To support an association. Oops. To support an association between brand preference and region. Okay, if I saw that more of the categories were closer together, like for example, the Marlboro and the other category, if these categories had also been very close together, I would say that then there didn't appear to be an association, but it actually does look like there is an association, like depending on the region you're in, you have a definite preference of brand. Okay. All right, let's look at number 22. Number 22 says the Pew Research Center for People and the Press asked a representative sample of U.S. adults about global warming. Repeating the question over time, in October 2010, the response reflected a decreased belief that global warming is real and due to human activity. Here's a display of the percentages of respondents choosing each of the major alternatives offered. So they were offered these choices, okay? It says, list the errors in the display. Okay, so number one, when I'm looking at the display, I see that it's three-dimensional, okay? And so normally when I look at a display, I want it to be two-dimensional so that it satisfies the area principle. Remember the area principle we talked about, that the area represented by the display has to be representative of what the value of each variable actually is. When we have a three-dimensional display, that's actually violating the area principle, because now instead of looking at area, we are looking at volume. And volume is different than area, okay? So this three-dimensional display violates the area principle. Okay, so that's the first thing I notice about this, okay? The other thing that I notice is when I'm looking at these percentages, I start adding them up, 34 plus 32 plus 9 plus 18, that's equaling 92%. So isn't this circle supposed to be 100% of the data? So we are missing 8% of the data. Okay, so where is that data? What happened to it? Okay, that's a big problem, right, in this display. That part of the data is missing, all right? And then my other issue with the display is because they've displayed it three-dimensionally, if I look at the 34%, this looks huge compared to all the other ones, okay? This one is representing one of these, you guys probably can see it a little bit more clearly, but it's representing this one right here due to human activity, okay? This one here was supposed to be the same as that color there, okay? So the display is making it look like a huge chunk of people surveyed felt that the global warming was due to human activity, okay? However, this slice of the pie should be almost the same as the 32%. I mean, these two should be very, very, very close together in size. And this one looks much, 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 much larger, okay? And it's because of the way they've displayed the data in this three-dimensional figure, and also that they're missing some of the data. So I don't know what they've done with that. I don't know if they've just added it on to the slice of pie. But when I'm looking at the 34% versus the 32%, they should look closer together in size. They should look more similar in size. So that's another big problem with this display, is it's leading one to believe that this category had an overwhelming, response from people, and that's not actually correct. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to number 24. So number 24 said, we're looking at cars. So a survey of autos parked in student and staff lots at a large university classified the brands by country of origin, as seen on the table below. I'm going to go ahead and flip the page. Okay, so here's the table that I'm given. Okay, what percentage of all cars surveyed are American? Okay, so if I want to figure out that percentage, it's asking me the percentage of all cars, okay, and which ones are going to be American. It would first be helpful if I knew how many total cars they surveyed. And one of the things I don't like about this display right now is there's no totals for like how many students, how many staff, how many American, how many European, Asian, and then a total number of cars. So I'm actually going to add on to this display okay, so I'm going to go ahead and total up. So I'm going to add across each row. So that's giving me 45, 102. I'm going to add down each column, 195, 164. And now I'm going to add across. That gives me 359. If I add down this way, it also gives me 359. That's one way to check if you did your totals right, is that whether you add across or down, they're going to add up to the same thing. So now this number here is telling me my total number of cars that were included in the survey. Okay, this number would be telling me total student cars, total staff cars, total American cars, European cars, Asian cars, so forth. Okay, so if I want to know the percent of all cars, my denominator is going to be 359. Okay, and how many that were surveyed were American would be 212. Okay, so when I go ahead and divide there, I'm getting 59.05% on that one. Okay. The next question, what percentage of American cars, so now you see they've changed the denominator, so my denominator is going to be American cars only, which is 212. Okay, were owned by students. So I want to know out of those 212, how many were students? Okay, that is 107. So now when I go ahead and divide there, I get 50.47%. Okay, the next question, what percentage of students? Okay, so now I'm looking for a total number of students, that's 195. Owned American cars. Okay, so out of those 195, 107 students owned American cars. So that's going to give us 54.87%. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the next part. So what is the marginal distribution of the drivers? Okay, so the marginal distribution, what it's asking you for is it's asking you to use the numbers in the margins to figure out the percentages of the drivers. So this is the type of drivers. So when I'm looking at the drivers, I'm not going to be looking over here. This is the origin of the cars. I'm going to be looking down here at the drivers. And so what percentage of the drivers would be students versus staff? Okay. So out of that, we get for students, we're getting 195 out of 359, which is giving us 54.31% of drivers are students. Okay, and then I'm also going to look at what percentage are staff. I'm going to write that over here because I'm running out of room. So that would be out of my total 164 were staff. So 164 out of 359 is going to give me 45.68% of drivers are staff. Okay, so that's your marginal distribution. You're using the numbers from the margins based off of the driver type. So we're looking at this margin, not this margin. Okay, if it asks you the marginal distribution of origin, then you'd be looking at these numbers. Okay, all right, so next, what is the conditional distribution of driver for American cars? Okay, so when we're looking at conditional distribution of driver for American cars, we still want to look at drivers, but we're only looking at the distribution over American cars, okay? So we're going to be looking at this row here, okay? We're looking at drivers for American cars, so that's the conditional distribution. So we're going to go ahead and do the conditional distribution starting with students, so 107 out of 212 is going to give us 50.47% of drivers of American cars. I'm going to abbreviate this a little bit. Are students. Okay, and then I'll also do for staff. So 105 divided by 212 is giving me 49.53% of drivers of American cars are staff. Okay, so that's how you find the conditional distribution of drivers of American cars, is you're only concerned with American cars and you're concerned about type of driver related to American cars, okay? All right, let's take a look at the next problem. So example 26, it says given example 24 above, so we're still using this data. Okay, what is the marginal distribution of origin? So now I'm looking at distribution of origin, so I'm going to be looking at these numbers compared to my total, okay? So I have for the first one 212 out of 359. It's giving me 59.05% of cars are American. Okay, then I'm going to go to European, so 45 out of 359, which is going to be 12.53% of cars are European. And then the last one is going to be 102 over 359 is going to give me 28.4% of cars are, what is this one? Asian. Okay. So that's that distribution there. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and look at what is a conditional distribution of origin for student cars. So if we're looking at the distribution of origin for student cars, I'm looking at student cars only. Okay, so I'm looking here and I'm looking at the distribution of origin. So I'm going to be looking at, for example, for American 107 divided by student cars was 195. Okay, which is giving me 54.87% of student cars are American. Okay, then I'm going to go to 33 for European. And I divide there, that's going to be 16.92% of student cars are European. Okay, and then the last one for Asian would be 55 divided by 195. That's giving me 28.21 of student cars are Asian. Okay. All right, let's take a look at part C. What is the conditional distribution of origin of cars by staff? So now I'm only concerned with staff cars and the origin of those. So I'm going to be looking at, for the first one, 105 divided by my staff total is 164. So that's going to give me 64.02% of staff cars are American. Okay, then I'm going to get 12 over 164 for the next one. So that's going to be 7.31% of staff cars are European. Okay, and then the last one will be 47 over 164, which is going to give me 28.66 of staff cars are Asian. Okay, so it says, do you think the origin of the car is independent of the type of, there's a typo in the instructions here. This is not supposed to say car. This is supposed to say driver. So make sure you edit that in your notes. Otherwise the question doesn't make sense. So do you think the origin of the car is independent of the type of driver? Well, let's compare the origins we have for these cars based off of type of driver. So for American, 54.87% with students, 64.02% with staff. That's a difference there, right? Over here for European, 16.92% versus 7.31. That's a difference as well. Over here, we got 28.21 versus 28.66. So those are similar, okay? So I would say the percentages of drivers of Asian cars is similar. We've got 28.21 versus 28.66, and that's students and staff respectively, right? However, okay, there is a significant difference in drivers of American cars there we've got 54.87 versus, what is that, 64.02? And drivers of European cars, right? Because those numbers were giving me 16.92% versus 7.31%. Okay. So there is evidence, not of independence, right? They're not independent. There's actually evidence of association, right? Of an association between type of driver and origin of car. Okay, at this point you should be complete with this set of notes, okay? And working on this homework. This one was actually pages 13 through 15. I think that got filled in, okay?